There is a Roman general standing in the mud outside a city that has not fallen in 300 years. His men are starving, his officers want to retreat. And he writes one line in his journal that night. Not a battle plan, not a prayer, just this: the obstacle is the way. That man was building an empire while other men were building excuses. If you are watching this because you are tired of apologizing for wanting more, tired of shrinking your ambition so other people feel comfortable around you, tired of hearing just be grateful for what you have from people who never built anything in their life, then you found the right video. This is not a motivational pep talk. This is a war manual. Because ambition, real ambition, the kind that keeps you up at 2 a.m., sketching plans on the back of a napkin, was never meant to be small. And the ancient Stoics, the same men who ran empires, commanded armies, and buried their own children without falling apart, knew something about success that modern self-help has completely forgotten. They knew that ambition is not a character flaw. It is a fire. And fire either builds a civilization or burns down a house, depending on who is holding it. Today we are going deep into 7 ancient truths about Stoic ambition, success, and what it actually takes to become the kind of entrepreneur history remembers instead of forgets. Not soft truths, not Instagram quote truths. The real ones. The ones that built Rome, that built empires of thought, that have outlasted every trend, every algorithm, every hustle culture phase the internet has cycled through in the last decade. And if even one of these truths lands the way it is supposed to, if it makes your chest tighten a little, if it makes you sit up straighter, do one thing for me. Stay until the end. Because the 7th truth is the one nobody talks about, and it is the one that separates founders who burn out at 35 from the ones who are still building empires at 70. Let's begin. Truth 1. Ambition without apology is not arrogance. It is alignment. Somewhere along the way, wanting things loudly became a sin. You built a company, and people called you greedy. You worked 80-hour weeks, and people called you obsessed. You turned down a family dinner to close a deal, and people called you cold. And maybe, some nights, you started believing them. Here is what nobody told you. Marcus Aurelius did not run the largest empire on earth by playing small. He wrote to himself, not for an audience, in a journal that was never meant to be published. Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. He did not debate his ambition. He executed it. Daily, privately, without needing anyone's permission or applause. The entrepreneurs who change industries are not the ones who ask for permission to want more. They are the ones who decided, quietly and completely, that wanting more is not something they owe anyone an explanation for. Your hunger is not a defect you need to manage. It is the exact thing that will build what everyone else is too comfortable to attempt. And notice something about the people who criticize ambition the loudest. They are almost never the ones building anything themselves. Seneca warned about this exact pattern 2,000 years ago. He said most men measure their own mediocrity by attacking the ambition of others, because watching someone else refuse to settle makes their own settling unbearable to look at. That is not your problem to fix. That is the cost of being someone who refuses to shrink. Truth 2. Comfort is the quiet assassin of every empire that never got built. Every founder has felt it, that warm, seductive pull toward good enough. The business is stable, the revenue is decent. Why push harder? Why risk it? And this is exactly where most ambition goes to die, not in one dramatic failure, but in 1,000 small decisions to stay comfortable. Epictetus, a man who was born into slavery and still became one of the most influential minds in history, taught something brutal about comfort. He said, "Freedom is not the absence of struggle. It is the willingness to struggle for the right things, instead of drifting into whatever requires the least from you." Comfort feels like safety. It is actually erosion. It wears down the edge that got you here in the first place. Think about the version of you 5 years ago, the one who had nothing to lose and everything to prove. That version was dangerous in the best way. Comfort is what happens when you start protecting what you built instead of continuing to build. The Stoics did not fear failure nearly as much as they feared complacency, because failure teaches you something. Complacency just quietly steals your future while convincing you that you are fine. If your business, your goals, your ambition have started to feel comfortable, that is not a sign you have arrived. That is a warning sign you have stopped climbing. Truth 3. The people who call your drive unhealthy are usually the ones who quit on their own dream first. This one stings, but it needs to be said. When you commit fully to something, when you cancel plans to work, when you choose discipline over convenience, someone in your circle will eventually say it. You need to slow down. You're missing out on life. Is this really worth it? Sometimes that concern is genuine. But sometimes, and you already know this if you have lived it, that concern is projection. It is easier for someone to label your ambition as a problem than to sit with the discomfort of their own unlived potential. Marcus Aurelius kept a private reminder for exactly this. He wrote that the best revenge is to not be like the people who provoke or discourage you. Not to argue with them, not to convince them, just to keep building, quietly, while they keep talking. This does not mean ignore every person who loves you and worries about your health, your relationships, your balance. It means learn to tell the difference between someone protecting you and someone who cannot stand watching you become something they were too afraid to become. One of those voices deserves your attention. The other deserves your silence. Because here is the truth about Stoic ambition that nobody puts on a motivational poster. Success was never going to be universally understood while you were building it. It only gets understood in hindsight, once the results are impossible to argue with. Until then, you carry it alone, and you carry it anyway. We are 3 truths in, and this is where most people would tell you to pace yourself, take it slow, find balance. But balance was never how empires got built, and it was never how the Stoics approached the pursuit of a meaningful life either. There is a reason Marcus Aurelius ruled during plagues, wars, and betrayals from within his own family, and still managed to leave behind a set of principles that outlived every empire that came after his. He did not find balance, he found discipline. And discipline, not balance, is what the next 4 truths are going to demand from you. Because what comes next is where most founders quietly fold. This is where ambition either gets tested and survives, or gets tested and quits. Truth 4. Discipline is not punishment. It is the only form of freedom that actually lasts. Every founder has heard the word discipline so many times it has lost its weight. It sounds like restriction, like waking up at 5 when your body is begging for 6. Like saying no to the party, the vacation, the easy version of the week. But the Stoics understood discipline completely differently, and once you understand it their way, you cannot go back to seeing it as punishment again. Epictetus taught that a man is not free because he can do whatever he wants. A man is free when nothing outside of him controls what he does. Think about that for a second. The founder who cannot resist checking his phone every 4 minutes is not free. The founder who cannot sit with an uncomfortable decision without numbing it away is not free. Discipline is what breaks that chain. It is not you restricting yourself. It is you refusing to be controlled by impulse, mood, or the opinion of a room. This is the part almost nobody says out loud about building something real. The version of you who sticks to the plan on the days you do not feel like it, it is not weaker than the version who only shows up when inspired. That version is stronger. Motivation is a mood. Discipline is a decision. And moods do not build companies that last decades. Decisions do. Marcus Aurelius ran an empire during a plague that killed a significant portion of Rome's population, buried multiple children, and fought wars on the frontier for most of his reign. And he still sat down almost every night to write, reflect, and recommit to his own standards. Not because he felt like it. Because he decided, long before the hard days arrived, that his standards would not bend to his circumstances. That is the entire difference between a founder who survives a brutal year and one who does not. The standard was set before the storm, not during it. Truth 5. Silence is a weapon most entrepreneurs never learn to use. Here is something that will feel counterintuitive if you have spent years in rooms telling people why your idea matters. Not everything needs to be explained. Not every critic needs a response. Not every doubt needs to be defended out loud. Seneca wrote to a friend once that most men lose their power the moment they start needing others to understand them. Think about how much energy gets burned trying to justify a decision to someone who was never going to support it anyway. Every hour spent convincing a skeptic is an hour not spent building the thing that will eventually convince them without a single word. This is where a lot of driven people get it wrong. They think ambition means being loud about the plan. It does not. Ambition means being loud about the results and quiet about everything else. The entrepreneur who explains every move, defends every decision, and debates every skeptic online is spending capital he does not need to spend. The one who says almost nothing and lets 18 months of consistent execution speak for him is the one people eventually stop doubting. Silence is not weakness. Silence is where the actual work gets protected from noise. Truth 6. Suffering is not proof that you took a wrong turn. It is often proof that you took the right one. There is a specific kind of pain that only shows up when you are building something that matters. The version of exhaustion that comes from a slow, meaningless job feels nothing like the exhaustion that comes from pouring everything into something you actually believe in. But because both feel like suffering on the surface, a lot of ambitious people misread the second one as a sign to quit. Marcus Aurelius had a phrase for this that has survived nearly 2,000 years for a reason. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. He was not being poetic. He meant it literally. The obstacle you are facing right now, the cash flow crisis, the co-founder who left, the launch that flopped, is not evidence that the path is wrong. It is often the exact material the path is made of. This is where a lot of Stoic ambition and success gets misunderstood by people watching from the outside. They see the struggle and assume something has gone wrong. They do not see that the struggle is the tuition. Every founder who built something that outlasted them paid this same tuition in a different currency, on a different timeline, but paid it all the same. You are not failing because it is hard. You might actually be exactly on schedule. We are 2 truths from the end now, and this is the part where a lot of people quietly relax. thinking they have absorbed the lesson. But there is one truth left that most successful people never say publicly, because it is the one that costs them the most to admit. It has nothing to do with hustle, or discipline, or silence. It has to do with what happens after you actually win. And if you skip this one, everything you just built can quietly come apart in ways you will not see coming until it already has. Truth 7. The empire you build outside means nothing if you lose the one inside. Here is the truth almost nobody wants to hear at the top. Success does not fix what was broken before the success arrived. It just gives it a bigger stage. The founder who was anxious before the exit is anxious after it, just with more zeros attached. The one who never learned to sit still without proving something is still restless in the mansion, still checking metrics at midnight, still chasing a finish line that keeps moving, because the real problem was never external. Marcus Aurelius understood this better than almost anyone in history, and he had every reason not to. He was the most powerful man alive. He could have anything, command anyone, silence any critic with a single word. And yet the most guarded, most private writing he ever produced was not about conquest. It was about his own mind. He wrote reminders to himself about anger, about ego, about the temptation to believe his own power made him untouchable. A man who ruled the known world still woke up every day to fight the same internal war as everyone else. This is the part of Stoic ambition and success that gets left out of every highlight reel. Winning does not deliver you to peace. Character does. If you build a company worth $100 million and you still cannot sit alone in a quiet room without reaching for your phone, without needing the next milestone to feel like you matter, you have not actually won anything. You have just built a more expensive cage. The Stoics called this the difference between things that are up to us and things that are not. Revenue is not fully up to you. Market conditions are not up to you. Whether people understand your vision is not up to you. But how you show up, whether you stay disciplined when nobody is watching, whether you remain someone worth respecting on the way up, that is entirely up to you, every single day, regardless of what the scoreboard says. This is why some founders reach the summit and become someone worse than they were at the bottom, while others reach the exact same summit and become someone people genuinely want to follow. The difference was never the money. It was whether they did the internal work while they were doing the external work. Most people wait until they have already built the empire to start asking who they became while they were building it. By then, the damage is already done, to marriages, to friendships, to the version of themselves that used to recognize their own reflection. So here is what I want you to actually take from this. Ambition is not something to apologize for. It never was. The hunger that keeps you working while others sleep, the refusal to accept a smaller version of your own life, the discomfort with mediocrity, that is not a flaw in your character. That is the exact material every builder in history has been made of. But ambition without an internal compass eventually turns on the person holding it. That is not a warning to slow down. It is a warning to build both things at once, the company and the character, the empire and the discipline that protects it once it exists. Marcus Aurelius did not become one of the most respected minds in history because he built the biggest empire. Rome had bigger armies before him and after him. He is remembered because he built an empire and somehow stayed a decent, disciplined, self-aware human being while doing it. That combination is rare, It is rare because it is hard. And it is exactly the thing worth aiming for if you are serious about building something that lasts longer than a headline. You do not need permission to want more. You never did. What you need is the discipline to earn it, the silence to protect it while you are building it, and the self-awareness to make sure that when you finally get it, you actually recognize the person standing there holding it. That is what separates founders the world forgets from founders the world remembers. If this hit something real in you, if even one of these 7 truths made you sit up a little straighter, do not just scroll past it. Hit like. Drop it in front of someone chasing something bigger than themselves. And if you want more of this, subscribe to Stoic Founder. This channel exists for exactly this, for people who refuse to shrink their ambition just to make other people comfortable. We will be back with more of these, so stay close.